نستكمل الآن في قراءة الكتاب إعادة قراءة تاريخ فلسطين، الحلقة السادسة. How did the Palestinians live after 1948? The refugees. Well, after 1948, Palestinian people were scattered across borders. Families who once lived within walking distance found themselves divided by checkpoints, frontiers, and decades of political hostility. The refugee experience, it's not simply displacement, it is reshaping of life. In Gaza, the camps became camped cities of tents, then concrete blocks, then dense, winding neighborhoods with no space for breath. In Lebanon, refugees faced restrictions on movement, work, and property. Entire generations grew up without citizenship. In Jordan, Palestinians received more rights, but their identity was still defined by loss. In Syria, Palestinians built stable communities, but even that stability was later shattered by new conflicts. A refugee camp is more than a geographic enclosure. It is a psychological landscape where childhood memories are shaped by overcrowding, poverty, and unfulfilled dreams. In the camps, memory became a form of survival. Keys to homes left behind, deeds to lands erased from maps, songs about the fields of Jaffa and the hills of Hebron, oral histories passed down at kitchen tables. They were not hobbies, they were acts of defiance. A new identity was forming in exile, not tied to one village or city, but to loss, dignity, and hope. The Palestinian identity is one of the few in the world built not on borders or government, but on shared memory and the commitment to return. How did the world respond? What about the UN? Well, after the Nakba, the world faced a moral and legal question. What happens to people who lose their homeland through war, political engineering, and forced displacement? The answer came in 1948 in a resolution. Refugees wishing to return to their homes should be permitted to do so. This resolution remains one of the most cited in Palestinian discourse. It enriched the right of return as an international principle. Yet, politics intervened. During the Cold War, global powers manipulated the conflict for strategic gain. The United States strengthened its alliance with Israel. The Soviet Union backed some Arab nationalist states. Europe maintained diplomatic ambiguity. Palestinians became a symbol, a cause invoked in speeches but ignored in policy of any of the nations. Dozens of UN resolutions affirmed Palestinian rights, but enforcement was non-existent. The world recognizes the injustice, but it did not correct it. In the late 1950s and 60s, a new generation emerged, the children of the Nakba. They carried the trauma of their parents, but also a burning determination to reclaim what had been lost. The Palestinian Liberation Organization was formed in 1964. It was originally an Arab League project, but it soon became independent, fueled by the energy of young Palestinians. Under leaders like Yasser Arafat, the PLO transformed into a political body, a military organization, a symbol of national identity. For the first time, Palestinians spoke for themselves, not through Arab capitals, not through colonial administrators, but through their own representatives. Then came the 1967 war. The Six-Day War changed everything. Israel captured the West Bank, captured Gaza, East Jerusalem, the Sinai, and the Golan Heights. Another wave of displacement began. Occupation replaced expansion as the defining reality. By the 1970s, the PLO gained international legitimacy. The world saw Palestinians not as refugees only, but as people with national aspirations. However, as with all liberation movements, rival fractions arose. Ideological debates sharpened. Political dreams confronted practical realities. But despite internal contradictions, the PLO remained the central institution of Palestinian identity. To be Palestinian in the 1970s and 80s was to be part of a rising global story, one of courage, controversy, and unbreakable will. Peace between Egypt and Israel was concluded. The 1978 Camp David Accords between Egypt and Israel marginalized the Palestinian issue. While peace was achieved with Egypt, Palestine was relegated to a secondary concern. Its people were excluded from negotiations about their futures. Palestinians felt abandoned as the Palestinian Liberation Organization was bypassed, and neither the right to statehood nor a solution to the refugee problem was guaranteed. The exclusion deepened the Palestinians' feeling that Arab states could negotiate their future without their consent, reinforcing the trend toward greater independence in Palestinian decision-making. Then, in 1982, the Lebanon War started. Since their expulsion from Jordan in 1970-1971, Palestinian Fidaiyin had established a strong presence in southern Lebanon and Beirut. These factions launched cross-border attacks into northern Israel, prompting Israeli retaliation. On June 3, 1982, an attempted assassination of the Israeli ambassador in London was used as a pretext for a major military campaign, although the PLO was not involved. This strategy reflected a broader Israeli objective: to dismantle the entire Palestinian military infrastructure in Lebanon, regardless of direct responsibility. The Israeli army invaded Lebanon on June 6, 1982, and rapidly advanced to besiege Beirut by mid-June. The operation exceeded its stated objectives, resulting in fierce urban warfare and a large number of civilian casualties. American and European diplomats brokered a deal that allowed PLO fighters led by Yasser Arafat to leave Lebanon and go to Tunisia. After the PLO's departure, Israeli-backed Christian militia, including the Phalangists, stormed the Sabra and Shatila refugee camps under Israeli supervision. Over 3 days, from September 16 to 18, a massacre was perpetrated, resulting in the deaths of hundreds, perhaps thousands of Palestinians. Following its forced expulsion from Lebanon in 1982, the PLO relocated its political and military leadership to Tunisia. This period was characterized by a shift from military confrontation to diplomatic maneuvering. The shift towards diplomacy and international recognition during its exile, the PLO intensified its diplomatic efforts, particularly in Europe, Africa, and the United Nations. Key developments include: 1. The 1988 Palestinian Declaration of Independence based on UN Resolution 181. The recognition of Israel and the call for two-state solution. Opening a dialogue with the United States in 1988 after renouncing terrorism. Revitalization its presence in the United Nations and the non-aligned movement, and maintaining ties with the occupied territories. Despite the geographic distance, the PLO maintained contacts with activists in the West Bank and Gaza. These ties became crucial with the outbreak of the First Intifada, which granted the exiled leadership renewed legitimacy and negotiating power.